participants. We are now live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the Committee on Public Safety, Tuesday, 6/27/2023, and we are having a public hearing on testimony regarding resolution number 230467. Mr. Glass, will you please read the title of the resolution? Mr. Glass. Hold on, everyone. Bear with me. Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass will be joining us shortly to read the title of the bill and to read an important announcement regarding being virtual, and then we will get started.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Read the title of the resolution.
That's quite all right. Would you please?
Resolution number 230-467, authorizing the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings regarding the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center on the evening of May 7, 2023, and the persistent systemic issues within the Philadelphia Department of Prisons that made such an escape possible.
Thank you very much. And would you now read into the record the announcement regarding virtual hearings, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I understand the state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. You're using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because this hearing is being recorded, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to Councilmember Jones recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for the witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. We will now call the roll, and will members in attendance please say a few words so that your image is captured on the screen. Mr. Glass.
Councilmember Thomas.
Phillips here.
Councilmember Gaudier. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Harity.
Present. I am here and accounted for. Hello, colleagues. Hello, Chairman.
Good morning, sir.
Councilmember Lozada.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
I think I heard Member Phillips as well.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm present. Anthony Vaughn.
Thank you, Member Phillips.
Councilmember Vaughn. Present.
For the record, Member Vaughn has been appointed by President Clark to this committee for today.
And Chairman Jones.
I am present, and a quorum has been established, so the committee is now underway. I'd like to recognize the author of this resolution for comments as we open the hearings. Member Vaughn?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat what you said, sir?
I'd like to recognize you as the author of this resolution for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this critical, important hearing today. I understand this is still an ongoing investigation and many questions may not be answered, but I do expect as much transparency as possible. To say the unmanageable events of Sunday, May 7th were alarming for the residents of Philadelphia is a huge understatement. However, one might argue that the persistent and systematic issues, in addition to the lapses in oversight within our prison system, is even more disturbing than the escape itself. The citizens of this city deserve an explanation as to exactly why and how something like this could happen, even after numerous concerns about deplorable conditions, staffing shortages, and other red flags were raised by this council. Today, thus, I felt the timing couldn't be more appropriate for this discussion. Ultimately, we need answers, we need solutions to prevent something like this from ever occurring again. I am confident the testimony we hear today will get us a step closer to those goals, the most important of which is having a safe city and a society that is protected from people who have been incarcerated for crimes against the citizens of Philadelphia. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. I just would say as Chair of Public Safety that as we unpeel some of the issues related to the escape and some of the longstanding issues related to criminal incarceration in the city of Philadelphia, that we need to keep in mind several things. That our number one priority is public safety. Our number one in that keeping the public safety, that includes corrections officers, staff, and inmates. And that balance is a difficult one to obtain. We also recognize that during these hearings, there are ongoing investigations that we will not probably be able to ask specific questions about. But what we can do is talk in generalities about what systems and what systems corrections need to occur to make sure that this never happens again. And with that said, are there any other members of the committee who would like to offer comments? Hearing none, Mr. Glass, will you please let us know who is the first panel to testify?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first witness will be Blanche Carney, Commissioner of the Philadelphia Department of Prisons.
Commissioner, are you there? There we go.
Good morning, Councilman Jones.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm well.
State your name for the record and please begin your testimony.
Blanche Carney. Councilmember Jones, Chair of the Committee on Public Safety, and members of City Council, my name is Blanche Carney, Commissioner of the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. I am here to provide testimony for resolution number 230467 regarding the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center on May 7, 2023. I will recite the points in the resolution, followed by my responses. Whereas on Sunday, May 7, 2023, at approximately 8:30 p.m., inmates Amin Hurst and Nasir Grant escaped from the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center, leaving the grounds, passing through and over outer fences. And whereas despite 3 routine head counts, the inmate's absence did not become known to the staff at the facility until the afternoon of Monday, May 8th, at which time the Philadelphia Department of Prisons notified the Philadelphia Police Department and held a joint press conference to share facts and solicit the help of the public in locating the escapees. Yes, as stated in the resolution, 3 routine head counts took place between the time of the escapes and the time that the Philadelphia Department of Prisons administration became aware that the escape had taken place. Procedures were in place for proper head counts, but these procedures were not properly followed. And whereas thanks to the thorough work of the Philadelphia Police Department's Northeast Detectives Division and the United States Marshals, Grant was taken back into custody on May 11th, and Hurst was rearrested on May 17th. And no fewer than 4 other people inside and outside of PICC were charged with aiding the men's escape. Yes, we are grateful for the amazing job done by law enforcement in apprehending the escapees and those who helped them. Upon discovering the escape, the PDP worked with law enforcement in providing information which helped lead to the capture of both escapees and also the arrest of 2 individuals in the community who helped with their escape. Additionally, PDP obtained and provided to law enforcement information which led to charges being filed on an incarcerated individual from the housing unit of Mr. Hurst and Mr. Grant, who assisted them with their escape. And whereas to their credit, the Philadelphia Department of Prisons immediately referred this matter to its Office of Professional Compliance for investigation, including a thorough review of security tapes, staffing assignments, telephone logs, and other evidence from the time leading up to the escape and the discovery of the inmate's absence. This is correct. There are ongoing civil and civilian criminal investigations into this matter. I cannot provide any information which could jeopardize the ongoing investigations, but will attempt to answer questions to the extent possible given the ongoing open investigations. And whereas, in addition, the mayor and managing director reached out to Governor Shapiro to bring in the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections to conduct a security and vulnerability assessment of the facility. Having requested the vulnerability assessment from the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections during my May 8, 2023 press conference, I'm leading PDP's continued efforts to work with the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections as they assess the security of the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. Whereas, while the members of City Council eagerly await the results of these investigations, they, along with members of District Council 33, Local 159, the Pennsylvania Prison Society, officials of the First Judicial District, state leaders, legal advocates, and other City of Philadelphia Resolution number 230467 continues. The observers, including the federal monitors appointed by the Remick versus City of Philadelphia, have been expressing their grave concerns about prison conditions for many years. And I acknowledge the crisis to staffing and challenges to our operations brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to the onset of the pandemic, as a result of collaborative work between the Philadelphia Department of Prisons and the many stakeholders in the criminal justice system, the incarcerated population appeared to be continually decreasing, consistent with the goals of the MacArthur Foundation grant and the stakeholder participants. For that environment and those population trends, the Philadelphia Department of Prisons had adequate staffing to operate its facilities and was able to implement a plethora of programming and activities to serve the incarcerated population and support its workforce. Unfortunately, that downward trend is no longer continuing. Instead, the incarcerated population has increased, and the time of pre-trial detention has substantially increased over the past several years. As you know, corrections nationwide have been impacted by COVID-19, with all systems experiencing high attrition rates as a result of the pandemic. PDP has similarly experienced this same significant and unexpected increase in attrition over the past 3 years. At its current staffing level, PDP is unable to fully reopen its facilities and unable to resume the robust level of programs provided to the incarcerated population. We have prioritized access to medical and behavioral health care, including substance abuse treatment. PDP has also continuously worked to hire and onboard new employees. Again, as experienced by corrections nationwide, the competitive labor market has made it difficult to attract, hire and retain staff, presenting a continued challenge to fill vacancies. We have attempted to address this challenge by securing a significant staffing salary increase, along with a 12-hour schedule that ensures security staff do not work more than 3 days in a row compared to 6 days in a row previously, with every other weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, which the previous schedule never allowed. This schedule allows for more time off and greater work-life balance. PDP has also sought and implemented sign-on and retention bonuses in effort to attract greater applicants for the position of correctional officer. A summary of the wage increases for security staff that we have procured through arbitration in order to attract and retain staff was a 2.75% wage increase effective 7/1/21, a 3.25% wage increase effective 7/1/22, a 3.25% wage increase effective 7/1/23. 2 retention bonuses of $1,300 each to all covered employees who were employed as of April 20th, 2022 and remain employed as of the date the bonus is paid. Bonuses to be paid 30 days after issuance of the August 12th, 2022 arbitration award and June 30th, 2023. A $2,000 hiring bonus for all correctional trainees hired on or after April 20th, 2022. $1,000 paid upon hire, which includes $500 upon graduation from the academy and $500 to be paid after 1 year as a correctional officer. In addition to the above, we procured through arbitration a significant salary increase for all correctional officers working the 12-hour shift schedule mentioned above, which is in the midst of being implemented department-wide and will cover 80% of the current workforce and all new hires. This additional significant increase raises the starting salary and step increases of our 3 union represented security ranks: correctional officer, correctional sergeant, and correctional lieutenant, according to correctional officers from 45,359 to 57,000, with the maximum step level increasing from $53,757 to $67,000. Correctional sergeant from $55,923 to $70,732, with the maximum step level increasing from $61,104 to $77,285. Correctional lieutenants from $63,068 to $79,770, with the maximum step level increasing from $68,912 to $87,161. We are making every effort to hire new employees and continuously optimistic that the described increases in salaries will prove attractive and a counterweight to the public coverage of corrections during the pandemic. Our goal continues to be to highlight the benefits of employment in corrections and to not highlight the inherent challenges as an advertising starting point, while also working to rebuild the community's trust. As the PDP is working to fill vacancies and manage its facilities with the current complement of dedicated correctional, civilian, and contracted staff, it is imperative that all of our partners in the criminal justice system work toward resuming timely disposition of cases. We acknowledge that the current population has more serious charges, which does not allow for immediate release, diversion as in prior years. This came of no surprise because this was indicated in the MacArthur report that we would reach this population at some point. It is imperative that such cases be tried, that case continuances be eliminated, and that our pretrial incarcerated population are either county or state sentenced or case processed for release. Failure to do so will only increase the population and backlog of the criminal justice system. We currently house over 1,000 more incarcerated individuals than our lowest population of 3,600 in June of 2020, just 3 months after the onset of the pandemic. Whereas among these concerns, all of which have serious health and safety implications for corrections and staff and inmates, the issue of staff vacancies is particularly troubling, and I cannot stress enough the extraordinary work done by the dedicated staff of the PDP. Our employees who show up and they ensure that a necessary function of our government and criminal justice continues to operate, even though unprecedented challenges. I join you in your concern for the health and safety of both the staff and the incarcerated population, which is why I have advocated for a new shift schedule that allows employees more rest time and provides significantly higher wages, and why I also work to gradually reactivate programming and increase visitation, even when provisions of those strain our staff resources. It is also why I focus relentlessly on hiring and retention. Simply put, we need staff, and we are eager to work collaboratively to fill vacancies. It will require a collaborative effort to accomplish filling vacancies, managing messaging, and employment trends. The funding earmarked in the recent budget, which was passed, acknowledges hiring and retention as a priority of which prisons will take full advantage. Whereas in fiscal year 17, the Department of Prisons was fully staffed, yet today, only 1,318 of 2,186 budgeted positions are filled. Despite the department's budget increase by 11% and inmate population decreasing by 42% over the same time period, and the cause of which I just addressed above. Whereas City Council member, employees of the Department of Prisons, inmates and their families, and members of the public, especially those who live close to the prison complexes, need assurance that the vital component of our criminal justice system is functioning the way that it should. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Philadelphia City Council hereby authorize this public hearing regarding the escape of the two individuals. Philadelphia Department of Prisons will continue its efforts to support our workforce by filling positions, working collaboratively with the City of Philadelphia in order to provide security inside our facilities, increase visibility of supervisors to support our frontline correctional officers throughout the schedules, accountability of staff to ensure procedures are followed and verified. Philadelphia Department of Prisons is a vital component of the criminal justice system, and it is dependent on the partnership of our criminal justice partners to ensure individuals accused or convicted have a speedy trial, serve a sentence no more than 23 and a half months, less 1 day, and or promptly transported to a state correctional facility upon receiving such a sentence, and any individual found not guilty is promptly released. Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony, and I'm here to answer questions as I am able. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony, Commissioner. I'm going to yield the mic to Member Vaughn, who is the author of the resolution. I will come back and ask some questions that I have in my mind based on the extensive testimony you provided so that we can unpack it and compartmentalize some of the answers. Member Vaughn?
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Carney, for your statement. It makes it look like a wonderful place to work. However, based on a lot of the issues and concerns from the correctional officers that I hear from on a daily basis, we both know that that is not the case. And it looks like you have been doing excellent work in trying to recruit as well as make it a profitable place to work. I do have a few questions about the head count procedure. I understand that you said it was not done properly. Can you go into detail how that was not done properly?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Vaughn. Unfortunately, I cannot go into an answer because that information has been provided as part of the investigation. And for me to speak now could potentially upend. But there are procedures in place that are expected to be followed regarding head count of the population to ensure that you have the proper number accounted for incarcerated individuals across the shift.
How about just discussing the procedure of how head count is usually done, not how it was not done in this particular situation? Tell me how it's usually done.
So how it's usually done, a correctional officer assigned to a housing unit is aware of the total number of individuals on that particular housing unit. They go around to each cell, accounting for each individual, and then that number should match up with the housing unit log.
So they have to see the inmate to
Yes,
to ensure that the inmate is present in
that is
in the
correct.
prison. Okay. Were there any alarms that did not go off this particular day? I understand you have a bubble in the center of the prison and they watch the rows of cells. Um, were they not functioning for the COs not to know that these individuals had maybe breached a certain perimeter?
So the alarm that I believe you're referring to is the exterior alarm.
Yes,
There
ma'am.
there are no alarms on the housing units. They're doing the direct watch. We are a direct watch department. And so that alarm did not activate.
Okay. Not only did the alarm not activate, were there supposed to be officers outside at those posts?
Yes.
Where, and we understand they were not staffed. Has that been something that's been added into your plan to have staff, once you get adequate staff, maintain those posts in the future?
Those posts were adequately staffed. We implemented immediately following perimeter patrols, both foot and vehicular patrols for that immediate area. So that's not a wait and see. Those posts are filled.
Okay. Once it was realized, I'm not familiar with the process, that the inmates were missing, how did the immediate community get informed of the escapes and the possibility that these individuals still could have been in that area? Is there some type of alarm that needs to be sound at the prison? Is it, you know how you get the weather alerts, those alarms that go over the system and everybody gets them on their cell phones? Is that something that should have been done by PIC?
I made a calculated decision given the gravity of the time that lapsed. We do have an emergency alert system for the immediate community. Based on the leeway time that the individuals had, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the alert for the community, which definitely have been longstanding partners with us, but I needed a full-on press head man hunt for these individuals. I utilized, once I confirmed the information, and it was as aggressive as we could possibly upon being notified that we had two escapees, I utilized the full strength of the media to send this out. And this was not just community, but citywide, nationwide, national news. We had such they had such a leeway on our notification and becoming aware of their escape. I wanted to make sure I got that out there to everyone I possibly could. So that was the calculated decision for not sounding the alarm prior to my media alert. It was in real time. We knew we were going to have a press conference, and I wanted to make sure I got that information out so everyone had it at the same time.
Okay. Can you tell me to date how many posts are still not filled by correctional officers?
I cannot tell you the post. What I can tell you is we are staffing first the post that has an incarcerated population. I can share with you that our budgeted positions, which we're not able to, and I alluded to that and testified to that in my testimony. We are not fully operational. We don't have the staffing full strength that we once had. So we're staffing from the inside out. And the critical staffings are the housing units and anywhere there's an incarcerated population, in addition to our perimeter staffing. but I do not have the full number of posts. But those posts include programs and activities that I simply can't offer anymore because I don't have staff. So the emphasis is on medical care, behavioral health care, medication assisted treatment. We have some small educational programs, but not all of my posts are filled because I simply do not have the staff to do so. And that's a delicate balance to balance between security and those emergent services that must be provided.
So you mentioned in your testimony that you're implementing a 12-hour shift. Has that started already? And if so, has it improved the mandatory overtime that a lot of the CEOs have to endure because of lack of staff?
So the CFCF was the first facility we implemented the 12-hour schedule in 2022 through the arbitration award. We were able to receive the expansion of the 12-hour shift system-wide. Riverside Correctional Facility just started their 12-hour shift 2 weeks ago, and PICC will be the last facility to be onboarded for the 12-hour shift. While it does provide work-life balance, we still need to fill the vacancies. We still have some mandatory overtime, but we've seen some slight decreases in staff leave usage. With this schedule, as I testified to, allows for individuals to have 1 weekend off, but how they were working were 6 days on, and then still on top of that, mandated overtime. So it does help, but it will not solve. We still need to fill the vacancies.
Okay, let's go back, if you will, if you can, to the day of the escape. Once it was known that they had escaped, you have already begun with a shortage of staff. How did you handle trying to see if these individuals were still on the premises? How did you handle staffing issues when you had to have officers searching the prison to see where if they still were maybe just out of their cells, someplace they should not have been?
So the facility was locked down, meaning everyone was returned to their cells. And then there are several other head counts where we do lock-in head counts. And that means everyone is secured in their assigned cells. Individuals are going around. We have the other facilities that then were placed in lockdown. And you activate your external perimeter patrols to see if these individuals were anywhere outside the facility, on campus, or in the immediate surrounding areas. We do have vehicles. That's our transportation unit that circle around, and you activate to try to see if you can identify or confirm whether they're here, they're in the wrong location on the campus or inside the facility, or are they gone. At that time, it was determined that they were gone.
Okay. You mentioned in your testimony that a lot of the short staffing was a result of COVID, but I'm told that short staffing was also prior to COVID. Are you claiming that it got worse as a result of COVID? And if so, would you say it has gotten better to some capacity as a result of all these incentives that you offer?
So COVID-19 exacerbated our vacancies. Just in 2018, we had closed the House of Corrections ahead of schedule.
I remember that.
We deployed every single correctional officer, sergeant, lieutenant, civilian, and contractor to our remaining operational facilities. At that time, we had a 5% vacancy rate. At that time, though, in the edict given from council, and we were keenly aware, was to reduce your overtime costs. Anytime you decrease and you close a facility, because your population is decreasing, the overtime decreased drastically as well. So we started to see that staff started to transition because the overtime dollars were no longer going to be given or managed at that level. And what we saw was we had a significantly higher staffing number on the 7 to 3 shift. That 7 to 3 shift, major operations, majority of the programs operated during that time, but we also had a significant number of our population outside of the facilities during that time, whether it be for court, off-site clinic trips, or appointments. We also saw during that same time, leading us up to 2019, when I offered initially the 12-hour schedule, was to right-side the staffing complement. We saw that we were experiencing staff assaults greatest on the 3 to 11 shift, which was the most challenging shift to fill during that time. And that was even with the closure of the House of Corrections. So we said we wanted to redeploy those staff and right-side it so that we not only could keep our staff safe on that 7 to 3, but also support our staff on the 3 to 11, which was the lion's share of leave usage at that time. Once COVID-19 hit, it was exacerbated. We were on point to the female population has significantly decreased. We were able to remove 230 women from RCF, which was the direction we were heading. That was all the MacArthur efforts. We were right-siding the staff that would be assigned. The population was decreasing. COVID hit. We saw our number of attrition skyrocket. So it was exacerbated. But we were along the way, pre-pandemic, putting in place how we should assign staff based on the population trend, which was going down. So we were in a good position. However, those efforts were upended and exacerbated by COVID-19.
Okay, I'm coming to the end, Mr. Chairman. I want
These
you
are
to
good questions. Good questions, Member Vaughn. Take your time.
Thank you. I want you to understand, Commissioner, this is not personal. You and I have never personally met. And this is just information that has been channeled to my office. And we wanted to have an opportunity to hear your side of it as well. I understand that we had a hearing before, and some of the prior CEOs that did testimony are now dealing with the repercussions or being treated as whistleblowers. And most of us on this in this meeting understand that that is not acceptable behavior. If someone tells an elected official or a person in authority about conditions that are unfair or not just in an environment, we want to hear about it. And we don't want that person to be feeling as though they have to leave their job because they spoke up about poor working conditions. And that leads me into, if you can explain to me how it was decided by the Union 159 to give you a vote of no confidence on May 2nd.
Well, being the commissioner is not always a popular position because you have to make the hard decisions. When we talk about accountability, first and foremost, we have dedicated staff that you wouldn't believe that I know that work inside these facilities, and we would be far worse if we didn't have them. That has to be balanced, however, against rules, policy, regulations. If you review my prior testimonies, it's always been about I support staff, but I have to balance that up against accountability. That's absent any whistleblower. I encourage any individual. We have the Office of Professional Compliance, which staff can go to report. Staff sometimes take advantage on reporting information to the Office of Inspector General, the EEO office. So staff are encouraged to do that. They have various avenues. And anyone who would seek to do retaliation, once we get those complaints, they're investigated. And based on the information and evidence, it'll either be founded or unfounded. So the process doesn't just die on the vine. Once one is initiated, we carry it through. The delicate balance is here. We know that this is a challenging profession, but we also have to hold folks accountable to ensure that the job for which they were hired, that they're not abusing leave usage. That's time that they don't have, and they're just calling out, calling out. We do have the responsibility for providing public service to a incarcerated population. And we can't do that absent staff. So it is a delicate balance on making sure that the rules and regulations for which individuals are entitled to, that are properly covered under state, county, and federal programs, that they receive that. But it has to be, there has to be accountability. It cannot, you cannot run a department and not address issues that you see that are systemic. So my goal here since 2019 was to provide a work-life balance. Gone are the days where you can have people working all this overtime. There's no
Which is
rest.
stressful.
It's stressful. You're not getting the best. The population is challenged and the workforce is challenged.
Mhm.
Corrections is changing. I saw that in 2019. Having 3 shifts, the workforce has changed. People have different thoughts. They want more social life. How do we do it? We got to it to the 2-2-3. And
Not
that
to mention, you know, the CEOs being exhausted. You can't expect someone to work, you know, 16 hours and more and not get a break at some point. I mean, just to go home and brush their teeth, it's a lot. Take their medications that they may have missed, things like that. You know, that has to be considered.
and I agree. And that's why I'm saying, even though we have the 12s, and for transparency, we still have mandated overtime. The goal is to decrease that, but we have to fill. This is, yeah, that's part of it, but we have to staff back up. People are not
Yes.
machines. And we're working. So these efforts were not put into, just taking them out the sky and hoping something works. Understanding people need rest periods. We want to reduce the overtime. And that was the reason we knew that taking away and reducing overtime costs, what were you giving folks? Well, we increased the salary. And then anything else is negotiated thereafter. But
Okay.
these are some of the things, but we have to work to fill the vacancies. That's just the bottom line.
That's it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am done at this time.
Thank you so much, member. And thank you for those insightful questions. And thank you, Commissioner, for your responses. I'd like to take a step back and, as Chair of Public Safety, I've had opportunity to visit your facilities, walk in those pods, meet your corrections officers who are professionals, who are doing a job that I can tell you without fear of successful contradiction, I could not do. I couldn't do it from the amount of hours that are required. I couldn't do it under the conditions that they have to serve in. And that bravery that I saw exhibited on numerous occasions is just, I want to thank them and you for your service. But let me get to what questions you might be able to shed some light on. That the 2 individuals that escaped, what were the charges? What were their priors, if you can share that? And what were their current accusations they were being charged for?
Mr. Grant had drug-related offenses, and Mr. Hurst was charged with murder.
If memory serves me correct, 4 counts, correct?
Correct.
So I asked that question to ask, are there different tiers of incarceration based on the clear and present danger a inmate may pose?
Yes.
Could you describe the levels that these 2 were and were they in, as you say, general pop? Were they segregated? Can you give us some insight to that?
So individuals are classified based on a number of variables that arrive at a custody level. These individuals were close custody and they were properly housed on a housing unit for close custody inmates.
So when you say close custody, is that a higher priority Remember,
That
I'm
is
a
the-
lay person.
Yep.
You gotta break it down to me.
That is the highest custody level. So
Got
our custody levels range from community, minimum, medium, and close. Close being the highest custody level of an individual based on a number of variables, their charges, prior arrests, and any other conduct in the facilities, either during the present or prior incarcerations.
Could you describe what that level of custody, what kinds of privileges or lack thereof do you receive at that level of custody?
Close custody individuals in general population have access to the same services and some similar activities of the general population. The unique piece with the close custody is that they're housed in the most restricted housing in terms of the facility setup. You wouldn't have them in a dormitory style setting. You would have them two-celled, and they would be housed in the appropriate area of the facility. So you will have them in an area concentrated based on their custody, the design of the facility, and the design of the jail. And PICC is a close custody facility.
So without endangering your investigation, at their time of escape, did the escape begin in that restricted facility?
Yes,
And at that point, it proceeded to the yard?
yes,
And if I understood some of your testimony, so you mentioned that based on shortages of staff, you have an inside out kind of prioritization of placement. So how do I phrase the question? What they may have been assisted to get out of that facility into a yard?
I cannot answer that question,
fair.
but in my testimony, I said we do staff from the inside out, but we also have the perimeter post filled as well.
Is there any sense of time it took for them to get from the inside to the outside? Generally speaking, without endangering, again, the individual investigation.
Yes.
So
I can't expound, I can confirm yes, but I can't provide any additional information.
and in that process, in that route, there were cameras?
Yes,
Whereas, was any of their travels captured on the cameras?
yes,
Okay, so we have a clear pathway as to what stations they may have gone by, how they traveled to the yard. And assuming there may have been some assistance by someone on the inside, they had also had help on the outside.
yes.
To your knowledge, is there a way to know how they coordinated and communicated that level of assistance outside?
Yes.
And are we taking precautions to limit that type of ability to coordinate in the future?
As far as the facility perimeter, yes.
Okay. All right. So, all right. I guess where I'm going with this is that to whatever degree the communications process that aided and abetted them, whether it was communication with someone on the inside who then communicated with someone on the outside, is there a logical, rational way to restrict that for certain inmates that constitute a higher degree of attention?
That would be most challenging, but I can assure you that there is ongoing procedures in place that monitor calls.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Let me take another step back to more systemic things that I know we've talked about on a number of occasions, both at our visits and at our subsequent public safety meetings. How are we doing on the repair of locks at your facilities? What is the progress?
So the progress that we talked about for RCF has 384 locks total. All 384 locks have been replaced.
Have they proven to be sufficient to restrain escape like the others were not?
Yes, as long as the door is properly secured and checked by the correctional officers.
So there was progress made on repairing and reinstalling new locks to correct that issue of inmates being able to kick on doors and then pry them open.
Yes.
Okay. By way of the perimeter, there was an issue raised by member Isaiah Thomas where we were talking about license plate readers for people entering your parking lot, leaving your parking lot, and possibly even at the perimeter of the streets. Has that been addressed?
Yes, that has been addressed, and there's been a subsequent update and of the technology as well. And I do have my deputy on here who has oversight for that. But that project, with DC being the latest to get updated software for the readers, that is well underway. And it's been implemented. So it's just now the upgrade of that software.
So I'm trying to establish this for the record so that my members and the public do not think that we have these conversations and they go into a black box and don't get addressed. That with proper resources and time, we're attempting to make the public safer and to give a sense of safety for the brave men and women that work in the corrections facility. Talk to me again about the and member our committee on employment and employment incentives. You mentioned that we went a starting salary. Kathy Gilmore is chairing that effort. We are now from 47 base to a 55 base salary upon completion of training.
Yes, and that is with the start of the 12-hour shifts that we wanted to incentivize to make sure when you're asking someone to start that new schedule, that we incentivized it and put as many benefits to working that schedule as possible. And most importantly is the financial piece of it. That is correct.
So has that been implemented or it will be implemented?
It has been implemented. We started that with CF, and through the arbitration process, we were able to get that. And the wage increases have gone into effect. And the bonuses we put into effect April 20th, 2022. And then there are the subsequent tiers of when wage increases go in effect and when individuals coming through the academy get that sign-on bonus. We were also intentional to acknowledge the dedicated staff that remain with us. So our existing employees receive that as well.
That's good. That helps and aids in retention. How much is that bonus again?
That bonus, so 2 retention bonuses, $1,300 each to all covered employees who were employed as of April 20th, 22 and remain employed as of the date the bonus is paid. So bonus to be paid 30 days after issuance of the August the 12th, 2022 arbitration award and June 30th, 2023, which is this coming Friday. The $2,000 hiring bonus for all correctional officer trainees hired on or after April 20th, 2022. $1,000 paid upon hire, $500 upon graduation, and $500 to be paid after 1 year as a correctional officer.
How have those increases impacted your recruitment and then onboarding and training?
So our numbers are still significantly lower than we've had in the past. We're averaging anywhere between 15 to 25 candidates per class, but we know we still have work to do. We need to get our cadet classes back up to 50 per class if we're going to make a significant dent. We're engaging in a hiring campaign, but we'll have, we're working to enter into a contract where we'll be able to post this job opportunity throughout the city. We used a number of mechanisms. We use digital billboards, then we use some local billboards, but now we're going to be working to have our information posted. We were successful to have receive continuous hiring, which we didn't have previously. Continuous hiring will have our position open. Oftentimes I hear from people in passing, Commissioner, the job is closed. Now the job remains open 4 weeks straight. It closes down 1 month and it goes all over again through December of 2023. And that was us working closely with Central HR. So that's been a benefit. So when you tell people we're hiring, now they see the job is open for 4 weeks straight, down 1 day, and then opened up every 4 weeks, down 1 day. Open 4 weeks, down 1 day through December 2023.
How have you attracted back some of your retirees? As I remember, that was a effort that was going to be undertaken during the height of lack of personnel at the facilities. How did that turn out?
We sent an invitation letter for that opportunity to every retiree. We had a number of inquiries, but it yielded 4 individuals who did come back. They worked part-time, and the reason they worked part-time and were assigned so that it would not have any impact on their retirement benefits. So it was working collaboratively with the Mayor's Office of Labor Relations, Central HR, to make sure we didn't disrupt. We will engage that population again, but that's still an opportunity for us to engage folks back. We have seen a continuous small amount of individuals asking for reinstatement. We review their background from the time they departed from us to the time that they're requesting. We do the background checks, and if everything is clear and they were a good employee, we're bringing them back. So we've had a steady trickle of reinstatement requests as well.
So can you update President Clark and Member Gilmore Richardson on those impacts of those particular incentives so that they can be mindful as they propose new ones or greater value ones in the future to see what the reaction to the labor market is based on the level of bonus. So please do that. And then at the point that you are able to release information on the ongoing investigation of these escapes, I think it will go a long way in making sure that the public knows that we are, and the reason why I painstakingly talked about locks and hiring and things like that is so that people understand that we are absolutely trying to work with the labor unions, with your administration, with the correction officers to kind of address these ongoing concerns so that all parties are and their safety issues are being considered. And so if you can keep us in that information loop so that we can share that, I think that would be beneficial. At this point, are there any other questions for this witness from members of the committee? Member Vaughn, are you good?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Commissioner Carney.
Thank you so much. Mr. Glass, will you let us know who the next panel of witnesses to testify are?
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our next witness is Larry Krasner, District Attorney of Philadelphia, and other representatives from the District Attorney's Office.
DA Krasner, are you there? Are you plugged in?
Yes, sir. Chairman Jones, I am here. I'm indeed plugged in. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. Thank you. State your name for the record And please begin your testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, Councilmember Vaughn and other members of council.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Larry Krasner. I'm the District Attorney of Philadelphia County. And I want to thank you for inviting me to participate in today's extremely important hearing having to do, on the one hand, with an escape that occurred in the Philadelphia prisons, and on the other hand, with what other factors may connect to that or underlie how we all got to that position. I do want to make sure that I say early and often that, not only in my capacity as DA, but in 30 years of going to the Philadelphia County prisons as an attorney before that. And by the way, over 30 years, you can accumulate more than a year in prison. Fortunately, not serving a sentence, but I did accumulate more than a year in prisons, including the county jail. So I'm very, very familiar with it, and I understand how incredibly important these hearings are. During those years, I did have the pleasure of getting to know a lot of PDP correctional officers, and I know that a lot of them deserve to be applauded for their public service, for the fact that they honor the uniform, they keep their oaths, and they do what everybody in a position of public trust should do, which is they come correct. But obviously, I think we all share the view that while that should be applauded, when there are individuals, if there are individuals who betray the public trust, who disgrace their uniform and violate their oaths, then those individuals must be accountable. And they must be accountable because they have not only gone to a place that is against the law, but they have also violated the public trust in ways that really endanger us all and shake public confidence. I'd like to very quickly introduce First Assistant Robert Listenby, who is in this hearing, G. Lamar Stewart, who's our Chief of External Engagement and City Government Affairs. ADA Leandra Rataco is here. She is the Chief of the DAO's Special Investigation Unit, and she, along with ADA Brett Zakosian, are very actively investigating this escape. And it is not the first time that they have been very actively investigating potential criminal conduct that may have occurred at the Philadelphia prisons. They have, in fact, brought other cases and brought them long before there was an escape from these prisons. Now, I do want to just lay out a couple of quick takeaways. I don't expect my testimony to be very long. I think it will be probably about 10 minutes, but there's some takeaways I want to raise early on. Number one, I am committed in 90 days to being able to come back before council. I would encourage you to have the DA's office, Leandra Rataco, Brett Zakosian, and other criminal justice partners and others in the city who are working closely with us. I would encourage you to have us come back and tell you absolutely everything that we are able to tell you, all the facts and all the specifics. And I think in 90 days, we will be able to tell you almost everything, if not everything. We will have videos, we will have photographs, we will have expert opinions, we will have audio recordings, and we will have interviews that will shed light on what's going on here. But I would not be any prosecutor at all if I told you before that investigation occurred that we have made a judgment. It is the opposite of what we should be doing to rush to judgment. It's the opposite of what we should be doing to assume this is a simple problem. I think it will become very clear in 90 days that this is a complex problem, a layered problem, that there is an interconnection between the opportunity for criminal activity that can arise when there are other systemic things that need improvement. And needless to say, the unique and the uniquely difficult circumstances of the pandemic played their role. We can only hope that that is going to a better place, and we hope it is. But I would just ask that, much like my office, members of council approach this with open minds as to what it may show. And I am committed not only to give you as much as I can, but to give you the absolute truth wherever it is that arrow may point, and at whomever and at whatever it may point. Now, I do want to let you know that we did not just start this investigation. It is active. It has been active since the moment of the escape itself. It does connect and interconnect with some other investigations that were done previously. So you might say we were investigating some of these issues even before the escape itself occurred. But in order to safeguard the integrity of the investigation, we have to safeguard what we have. I'm sure members of the public will understand that if we go to interview a witness and that witness knows all of our information, that witness can switch up what they have to say. But if we go to interview them and they don't know what video, what photographs, what witness information, what calls, what recordings, and they don't know what we have, and they don't even know with whom we are working, then we have a much better chance at doing an investigation that is solid and has integrity. What I can talk about in a little bit more detail, which I will do now, and yes, I intend to keep my promise of 10 minutes or so, I can tell you what our immediate response was. So my office became aware of the prison escape on Monday, May the 8th at about 4 p.m. And we understood that our primary and immediate responsibility at that time was to ensure that all of the victims, survivors, and witnesses who were associated with the cases involving these escapees were notified. We did not want them seeing this on the nightly news before they heard from us. Let us remember that Amin Hurst, at the time he escaped, was charged with 4 murders, and he was charged with 2 non-fatal shootings. And one of those murders occurred essentially on the grounds of the Philadelphia Department of Prisons and had to do with the attempted killing of someone who he believed was being released from the prisons that night. To say sadly understates it, but he actually killed the wrong person, someone who was not his intended target. This is shocking. This is shocking conduct. If we were to make a Mount Rushmore of the most dangerous people in the Philadelphia Department of Prisons at that time, Amin Hurst's face would have been there at that time. Absolutely shocking. So we knew that we needed to get to family, and we did that immediately. We knew we needed to get to survivors. We knew we needed to get to potential witnesses. And so First Assistant Listenby, G. Lamar Stewart, worked collaboratively to direct our victim support staff to contact survivors, witnesses, victims to offer support, including temporary relocation if they wanted it, until these defendants were back in custody. It was so important to me that I actually spoke myself to some of the members of these families, some of these survivors and victims, so that they would understand that we understood how fearful they might be and how much they might be in need of our protection. I also want to give major thanks to our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, as well as other city entities who worked around the clock to ensure that both fugitives were brought to justice and that people knew that they were not going to be the next target on the street when this occurred. Now, as much as I can tell you that, the investigative response is something that I look forward to describing for you in great detail in about 90 days. And if I can do it sooner, I will let you know. If we can do this in 75 days, you will hear from me probably about day 65. So you'll know that, because I understand how urgent this is. We take it extremely seriously. As I sit here, I have the benefit of knowing a lot of information that is important. I would say it is compelling. I would say it will assist counsel in its proper and laudable efforts to address any systemic issues that may exist and to address any criminal conduct that may exist. There's a lot I'd love to tell you right now, simply put, but we're not at a bus stop and we're not sitting at a bar. I can't do that and be a prosecutor who wants the investigation to be solid, who wants it to have integrity. That is a story that needs to be told, but it is a story, and I say this with great respect for all of you, that will take a little bit more time. We are doing everything we can with our limited staff who work on these types of issues, and we will push hard until we have all the information for you.
Thank you, District Attorney Krasner. We understand that sometimes justice, the wheels of justice grind slow, but they grind fine. And that is an important part of restoring. And I think Member Vaughn's incentive to do these hearings is to restore confidence, confidence to the public that if you step up to the plate and provide yourself, even being a victim or to be a witness to a crime, that those individuals that are accused cannot come back on you
Exactly.
in a way that makes you unsafe, your family unsafe. And her interest in this is not just for the members of the institution, not just members that are incarcerated, but members that fall victim to some of these murders, for murders, for families, potential witnesses galore, that if I do not believe that when we have somebody apprehended, that I can then go to the neighborhood corner store and not look up to my left or to my right and see them and wonder how did they get out. That is not a vote of confidence for people who can't always be put in protective custody. Once the accused is in custody, there should be a collective sigh of relief that says, now I can continue with my life. So thank you for giving us what you can, that assuring us that when you can provide more, you will. And I will turn the mic over to Member Vaughn, who may have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Krasner, I do appreciate you, and I'm going to make sure that we do, if possible, with the chairman's permission and the council president, have you back in 90 days, and the commissioner as well, so that we can find out exactly what all the details are that are involved. And I'm a firm believer that if we know about 4 bodies, there possibly can be more. I immediately started calling the young man a serial killer, and I don't wish him or his family any harm. Everyone deserves to be treated fairly and just, whether you're the one that's being incarcerated or whether you're the one that is the victim. And we all are someone's child, husband, cousin, niece, nephew, whatever the situation is. We're family one way or the other. And everyone has their version of that individual and loves them to some capacity. And we have to remember that. But at the same token, there's an old show that was called Beretta. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, So it's so important that we get to the bottom of this situation, and that those that are responsible come to the forefront and be held accountable. This is not a witch hunt for anyone, and it's just more about making sure that everyone involved gets their fair share of what needs to happen, whether it's the services that we provide to the inmates from the COs and the correctional facility, or if it's the families that suffer. Because oftentimes when we incarcerate someone, we don't just incarcerate that individual, the family gets incarcerated as well. We all serve the time to some capacity, and I'm looking forward to when this case is completed, and I'm looking forward to hearing more details about how it transpired, who were the individuals involved, and whose head needs to roll as a result of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member D.A. Krasner, did you have a response?
I just wanted to thank Councilmember Vaughn. I tried really hard to disagree with anything she said, and I failed. So, that's what prosecutors do. They're always looking for an issue, but I have no issue. Every single word you said I could not agree with more. And the reality is, one of our concerns, which I think has now been articulated by 2 council members, is that there's a lot of inmates up there who are not Amin Hurst. And when things are not going well, they're endangered, just as the public is endangered, just as public trust is endangered. So I appreciate the holistic approach to all of our wanting the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but, and being able to act on it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the district attorney from members of this committee? Hearing none, thank you so much for your testimony, and we will stay tuned. We'll take Member Vaughn's and your request up, and in 90 days have an update. Thank you so much, Mr. District Attorney. Member, Mr. Glass, do you have another panel to testify?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our next witness is David Robinson.
Mr. Robinson, good to see you again. Please state your name for the record, and please provide us with your testimony.
Sure. My name is David Robinson. I'm president of Local 159. I represent the correction officers on State Road. I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councilmember Vaughn, for this resolution, and thank other city council members who are in attendance. And before I start, I'd like to just say this isn't an attack on anyone. This is just trying to find out some information. Of course, we know this is an ongoing investigation, so questions that are asked can't potentially be answered at this time. So I respect that. The union respects that. It's just that we're at a point where we've been down this road plenty times. We sat on these hearings multiple times for the past few years trying to get things right within the prisons. And it seems like we're coming to a roadblock. Not much has changed. Even with a 12-hour shift, my members are still overworked. 16 hours, 19 hours, some 20 hours, just even this past few days. And it's all on record. So there's no reason for me to sit here and lie. I just want to provide honest testimony. And of course, as you know, on May 2nd, we as the union and the members, not as an executive board, not myself, but the members, the staff that actually works within the prisons, had a vote of no confidence against the administration. And we wrote letters to the mayor, we wrote to council, and we still haven't heard anything, no response. We just keep getting the same old, everybody's doing a good job, when that's not so. My members are suffering. And it's time that the city takes accountability. I've taken accountability. I want everyone just to understand what's going on and what's not going on. The prisons is a delicate situation for everyone. It seems like it's a black cloud over the prisons that we don't talk much about it, but we know this is a whole community. We talk about public safety and the city being safer when a lot of things that are happening on the street actually start within the prison. And there's a lot of information that people can get out of the prisons, whether it be correctional staff or even the inmates, or they call them incarcerated persons now, but the IPs. There's a lot of information out there. My thing is, the union has come to the city time and time again, saying how unsafe the prison is, how we need staff. The union, we don't hire. Myself, along with other union members, we've gone with the city to job fairs just to, try to work together. This isn't, every time the union and the prisons department fight, the only one suffers is my members and the inmates. So the fight has to stop somewhere. And I've been trying my best to work with the administration to no avail. I can't sit here and just say, hey, listen, everything is peaches and cream and it's Disneyland, when it's not. There's a lot of work to be done. My members can't take this any longer. 12-hour shifts turn into multiple hours. I know the commissioner stated earlier about a work-life balance. It's not a work-life balance if you don't know when you're leaving, when you got to go in. It's a constant just work until you can't work anymore. The prisons, the correctional officers always go under this model of making it work. Well, the time that we make it work, that's when things happen. That's when mistakes are made. And again, this is an investigation on the escape. I don't know the particulars. I don't know any of that, but I know people are fatigued. People are tired. People are walking around like zombies. Myself, along with the Public Safety Committee, probably a little over a year ago, we did a few tours within the prisons, and we know the smoke. It hits you just, if you aren't someone who partakes in any type of extracurricular activities, whether it's drugs or anything like that, and you're this clean person and you walk inside that institution, it hits you. So imagine working there 24 hours a day, every day. You're immune to it. Your eyes are bloodshot red. You're walking around like a zombie. Again, that's when mistakes are made. My members have been screaming for help for years. Well before I was president, I was a sergeant. I have 17, as of yesterday, it's been 17 years in corrections. I was a sergeant, a frontline sergeant, when the pandemic started. I've seen people disappear around me. I know once that shift, when the officers that were on 7 to 3 got taken down to forced down to 3 to 11, I seen how it changed everything. How people just said, I can't take this anymore, I'm leaving. So we can't just blame the pandemic on officers, hightailing it out here for better work, better wages. We have to understand there's leadership that has to take accountability for what happened. We have to understand that if I'm someone who was on a shift for 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, I know my schedule. My family knows my schedule, and then all of a sudden it's just to a halt. And now I'm putting down on 3 to 11. Yes, it's not a desired shift, but I had to work that shift for plenty of years. You have to pay your dues. It came to a point where people didn't want to pay the dues. People said, I'm out of here. So it could have been handled differently in the beginning. And maybe some of those people that left would have still been here. But now we're at a point where our staffing levels are so low that we have unmanned units every day. Every day there's an unmanned unit on State Road. And that's where we get to the point where does this stop? How do we handle it? We don't have enough staff. Yes, we had a raise, but it's not enough. You put your life on the line every day. It's like Daniel going into the lion's den. So imagine putting a police officer in the middle of Center City, one police officer, here, handle this. That's how it is for a correctional officer on these units. And just like Councilman Vaughn said and DA Krasner, everyone in there isn't a killer. Everyone, you're innocent until proven guilty. However, there's still the thought of, who am I on this unit with? When I walked the Public Safety Committee, we've seen a lot of women that worked inside those institutions. Those women are some of the strongest women in the city of Philadelphia. They're on those units with rapists, murderers. Some were sexually assaulted while on duty. These are the things that the city doesn't know about. They just think correctional officers are the big bad wolf and we're here just to lay the law down. Every correctional officer raises his right hands at the graduation and takes an oath to make sure they can perform their functions just as such. So, do you have bad seeds? I'm sure. Every career, every job, everyone does. But there's a lot of good men and women that work inside those institutions that are being ignored. Correctional Officer Employee Week was on May 8th. And instead of having an opening ceremony, the mayor, city officials had to hold a press conference for an escape. That's how we opened up our week. We didn't open up to, hey, we're going to come up and, this grand old ceremony like we did in the past. We started on a dark cloud. I don't want to end this on a dark cloud. So when I say my people inside need help, we need help. It's not about being ignored anymore. And everyone, for the most part, a lot of people on here know me. They know of me. I'm not this quiet person. I'm not a pushover. I fight for my people. I don't care if I have to rally outside of City Hall, on State Road, do whatever I do to get any type of attention to say, listen, we need help. But I'm tired of the hearings. I'm tired of the visits just to say we visit, the tours just to say we toured. I just want action. Now, this is about an escape, but the all-around bigger view, the bigger picture is about helping the people that are in there, whether it be the correctional officers, the staff, the social workers, the nursing, medical staff, and the inmates. Everyone in there needs help. We all look for guidance. I'm just asking that this goes somewhere and it doesn't stand still. I applaud DA Krasner and his office for saying if they can get things done in 90 days, I would love to be invited back just to be on there to see how things go. It's just the narrative, because I have to understand my members' safety as well. The narrative that went out, inside job, automatically, they don't think inside job with other incarcerated individuals or inside job with other, other staffers. They just say correctional officer. So if you think inside job, you're automatically gonna go to correctional officer. So my people are on these streets. They're not feeling safe. They're getting ridiculed at gas stations, going to the store, everywhere they go. They're not safe. It's my job to protect them. But it's also the city's job and the department's job to protect them as well. So I just want to clear the narrative of until the investigation is over, we shouldn't just go with inside job because the wording alone just says correctional officer. Because we have the ignorance of the community that don't know, and it's not their fault. My mother even called me and said, hey, it's inside job. She's thinking correctional officer. So you have to tell people, you have to school people to let them know and understand, listen, this isn't what it's about. These men and women work too hard. These men and women, again, going back to the work-life balance. There's no such thing as a work-life balance in corrections. There's not, because we take our work home. And again, even with the smoke, when we're feeling nauseous, we're ignored. If I have to call, if I'm on a unit and I'm working and I'm not feeling type of a way and the smell is getting to me and I feel like I might be even getting a contact, I call my supervisor, I'm ignored. Oh, get over it, you'll be all right. And then when I say I gotta leave, and then when I'm throwing up, I'm still ignored. This just happened. I'm speaking for my members to the point where they have to pass out just to be able to leave. These are the things that I would love City Council and everyone else just to look into. And that's why, Councilman Thomas, we have the Prison Oversight Board, hopefully in the works in the near future, that we can really get a deep dive instead of having the secrets. Because there's still families in the community that might have questions of how their loved one died inside the institution, and they're being ignored. We still have correctional officers that are assaulted, being knocked out, broken noses. They're being ignored. So there's a lot to be done. And I know the prisons it's that thing that it's taboo to speak of. But I just want City Council, the Prison Oversight Board in the future to understand those are human beings. And the commissioner stated earlier, they're not robots. They're not robots. So mistakes happen. People have to take accountability. There was a lot of I stated previously about raises, about better conditions. Well, it's time to take the I and take an accountability of the wrongs as well. So with that, I don't want to take too much time. I thank you for allowing me to speak, to testify today, because it's very important to me. It's very important to my members that we get something done. Thank you.
So let me first say thank you and your membership for your service. There's not a part of the city that I go to that someone doesn't come up to me in a grocery store line, tap me on the shoulders to share with the things that you talked about. So I know you're not over exaggerating when you say them. I do understand that at the heart of this, we have to deal with some systemic things, like making sure you guys get some relief, that you get other corrections officers onboarded. We get that. The reason why we go on those tours is not to say that we just went up there, but I smelt that K2 that you're talking about, and I got a headache from it. So if I had to work in that environment for 4 hours, more or less 8, more or less 12, I don't know if I could do it, because it bothered me. And we have to look at some of the long-term issues that we've talked about. We've made some progress on some, but we're going in the right direction, but sometimes not fast enough. So my hope is that if we keep coming back to it, if we keep checking in, if we keep making small incremental steps till we get to the big giant steps, then that is progress. And I'm hopeful that we're about to change administrations. We're about to have our 100th mayor, so that these things, we don't have to start over from scratch. That we have a firm understanding of what the nature of the problem is, so that we can provide resources to solve it. So I appreciate what you fight for every day for your members. I'm thankful to your members for the service that they provide, because at the end of the day, elected or not elected, I got to go to an ATM. I got my wife has to get gas at a gas station. That level of inmate has changed. It's not the same inmate that we might have experienced pre-pandemic. And we're dealing with a tougher client base and more charged client base. So your job ain't easy. We went up there. I see the brave women that sit on those pods, and the only thing protecting them is some heart and a plexiglass. That is no joke. You are literally in an environment where only your faith in God protects you. I saw it. So if you're telling me on those pods now that they're totally unmanned, we have to address that. And it is not one of those where we meet, we have hearings, and we discuss it and kick the can down the road. Member Vaughn insisted that we not take too long dallying with this, and we're just addressing it. And we're thankful that in 90 days we'll get an update from the DA, and we invite you to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Member Vaughn, do you have any questions, comments?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Robinson, I do appreciate your testimony. And I am, as Mr. Chairman stated, I was aggressive about making sure that this hearing took place, although I knew that our information would be limited. But I wanted to have something on the record to show the citizens of Philadelphia that we are deeply concerned about the well-being of your members, as well as their loved ones that may be behind those walls. And I have heard, as Councilman Curtis has heard, of the many, many issues with the substance of K2 getting into the facility. And I mean, let's not play. It doesn't take rocket science to know how it's getting in there. So we need to address that as well. And I am told that it does make people very, very ill from smelling it for such long periods of time, and that something has to be done about that getting into the facilities, and all the other issues that you brought up and have been dealing with for quite some time, that your membership has come to you and expressed. I want to again reiterate on this public record document here that if someone comes to you, they will not be punished or criticized for letting you know, as their union representative, what is happening behind those walls. They will not be pushed to being terminated. And if they are, whoever is doing such activities will be addressed. That kind of behavior is not what we accept in this government body. And I'm sure that I can get others to agree with me that it is necessary for us to understand what's happening. And if we don't, if your staff or your members don't tell us what's going on, we have no way of knowing. So they should not be punished for letting us know what happens behind those walls. And I thank you again for having the courage to speak with us, and for your presence often in our chambers, making sure that you're watching and keeping your thumb on the pulse of what needs to happen for your membership and what needs to be addressed for your local 159 union. Thank you for everything, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson, for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask questions of this witness? Seeing none. Mr. Glass, are there any others to testify?
Mr. Chairman, our next witness is Noah Barth, President of the PA Prison Society.
Thank you. Mr. Barty, are you connected?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Jones and council members. My name is Noah Barth. I'm the Prison Monitoring Director of the Pennsylvania Prison Society and a proud Philadelphian. I have a brief prepared statement to read, and I would love the opportunity to engage in any questions or thoughts that the committee has for me.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Since 1787, our organization has monitored conditions inside the Philadelphia prisons and those across the Commonwealth. We're inside of the prisons on State Road multiple times per week, meeting with incarcerated Philadelphians who ask for our help. Over the past 2 years, I have led 10 walkthroughs of the Philadelphia prisons, observing conditions, speaking with staff, and interviewing a total of 411 detained Philadelphians across all 5 facilities. These walkthroughs, combined with the hundreds of detained Philadelphians we have conducted individual visits with, have painted a very clear picture of dysfunction, neglect, and abuse. This is the result of not only a major staffing shortage, but mismanagement, a problematic organizational culture, and an overuse of incarceration. The recent escapes from State Road are only the most publicly visible sign of the crisis in the Philadelphia prisons. The majority of people in Philadelphia prisons we have interviewed over the course of the last 2 years report being locked in their cells for days or weeks at a time with no access to showers, phone calls, or the barest forms of diversion or human interaction. We have shared time and again with city and state government reports of falsified recreation logs, unstaffed housing units, unattended medical emergencies, staff assaults, unchecked violence, people going hungry, unnecessarily missed court dates and legal calls, decrepit and unsafe conditions, and a litany of other troubling issues. In our walkthrough last month at the Riverside Correctional Facility, 64% of people we interviewed said that they don't feel safe. 72% reported the presence of rodents, and 75% said that officers do not respond to calls from in-cell buzzers. These numbers are consistent with our prior walkthroughs. And we are not alone. A chorus of concerned individuals, organizations, and community groups have repeatedly raised alarm bells that have largely gone unheeded. Recently, we have seen improvements in the commissary system and laundry delivery. While these may seem of marginal importance, they are critical to the day-to-day experience of people in prison and evidence that improvement is indeed possible. The Prison Society is heartened that this hearing has been called and that the council has solicited our input. We believe that the ongoing human rights crisis in our city's prisons should be of imminent concern to all Philadelphians, as 4,300 of our neighbors continue to have their health, safety, and dignity jeopardized by the very government whose responsibility it is to protect them. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for your consistent caring about the least of us and those who find their way into incarceration. I've had opportunity to see your works and be a part of some of your efforts. So thank you. Thank you for your concern and service. Are there questions or comments, Member Vaughn?
No, I don't. Thank you again, as I want to reiterate all the good work that you do in making sure that those that are incarcerated try to get the best benefits and support that they can possibly get from your services. Thank you.
Thank you.
We recognize the history there and that this was one of the Quaker initiatives a very, very long time ago, meant to be humane, meant to resolve conflicts and disputes where incarceration or the relief of your liberty was done, but in a humane way. So you have been, and your organization and organizations like yours has been very consistent into the nature of correction. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Glass.
Mr. Chairman, there are no further witnesses to testify, and we can move into public comment whenever you're ready.
Okay, will the witnesses, we'll take a brief moment to allow witnesses to disconnect. How many witnesses, how many public members are there for comment today?
One individual has signed up to testify for public comment today.
Okay, can we make sure they are connected and they can be heard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe council support is connecting them now. Mr. Chairman, the first individual to testify for public comment is Jeffrey Bishop.
Mr. Bishop, are you connected?
We are connecting him now.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Bishop. Thank you for your patience. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is Jeffrey Bishop. I'm currently a correctional sergeant with the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, assigned to the Riverside Correctional Facility. Been there for about 10 years. I've been the supervisor shop steward for about 3 years.
Well, thank you for your service. Please proceed.
So first of all, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak and give testimony. But like everyone said, this didn't happen overnight. I want to first go back to instances where these things were growing on 5/24/2021, 6/2/2021, 8/2/2021, and 11/29/2021. I submitted grievances to the office of the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, HR, that were never answered by this administration about the unsafe working conditions and how things like this could happen and possibly happen. I submitted 4 grievances. I submitted over 20 memos from officers being concerned about their safety and security inside these institutions that they were assigned to. They all went unanswered. All 4 of those grievances, I've never heard any response back to anyone from this administration. Whether it was the commissioner, the deputy commissioners, no one responded back at all. One of the things Commissioner Carney talked about is the 12-hour shifts, the wage increases. Yes, that does look good. That does look nice. But the wage increase, it does look good if the members are getting it. I've sent the email out this past week about some of the members not receiving that wage increase to that step. I did get a response back. Some of the members put in payroll discrepancies of not receiving the wage increase, and they're waiting for a response back from personnel or payroll from the payroll discrepancies. So yes, the wage increase does look nice if all the members that signed up for the 12-hour shift are getting it. And when you start something like that, it brings the morale down because you're implementing something, but the officers aren't getting it. We're being told one thing and seeing something else. Ms. Vaughn, you said it's a wonderful place to work. You're absolutely right. It's definitely a wonderful place to work. I've been there, like I said, for 10 years, and out of 8 of those years, I had a perfect attendance. But it's the people that we have leading us that are not considerate and not passionate about the officers and the supervisors and the staff that we have there working for them. You see the favoritism with promotions just recently. You see the favoritism with post assignments. You see all that. If you are not in the clique with this administration, you don't get anything. You're considered the bottom barrel feeder, and they treat you like a bottom barrel person. I can personally speak on that. When you see that, it brings the low morale, and it brings low morale with the frontline staff, and it brings low morale with the staffing. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. On 5/29/20, I personally was stabbed 7 times in that job. All I got from this administration was, we'll look into the investigation. I didn't hear anything back from the commissioner. I didn't hear anything back from the deputy commissioner. I didn't hear anything back from anyone. The deputy commissioner showed up to the hospital as crowd control because officers were coming to the hospital to show support and ordered them to leave because the hospital said it was too many officers coming. It's the same thing with the Philadelphia police. When a Philadelphia police officer gets shot, how many police officers at the hospital? Do you see the deputy commissioners and the commissioners saying, yo, y'all got to leave? No. These officers came out to show support to a supervisor that was stabbed along with 3 other officers that day, and they was ordered to leave and go home where they would be disciplined. That brings low morale to the staff. That brings low morale to the workplace. During COVID, it played a major role. Yes, it definitely did. You're absolutely right. COVID, I look at it like this. We need to assess the 3 R's: recover, reevaluate, and restore. We need to recover where we were from COVID. We need to reevaluate our policies and procedures, and we need to restore the operations of this facility. Restore it to where you need to get an answer from your frontline supervisors, your frontline officers on how things should be working, how things should be operating, and take that back into consideration. Not make policies, not make procedures just to do it because you have the title and just say, get it done because I want it done, and don't understand how it affects the staff. You have officers and supervisors being denied to come into work. You talk about post assignments and assignments being closed. This past weekend at RCF, you had supervisors and officers willing to come into work before their scheduled shift and were denied. But the posts that was critical were closed. So then now the officers that come to work are subject to the mandatory overtime because guess what? You denied people the right to come into work. But on the roster, you'll code it as post-close temporary staff shortage. It wasn't staff shortage. You denied the officers, you denied the supervisors to come to work. So how was that staff shortage? When you deny someone to come to work, you're creating that atmosphere. You're creating that low morale because now that other officer could have came in for 4 hours and assisted with the housing area. He could have came in for that 4 hours and assisted with the meal. He could have came in and assisted with the medication. If there was a trip that had to go out, he could have assisted with that. Now you're denying people that right to have some type of help, which would alleviate some of the frustration that some of these officers and supervisors are dealing with. Officers and supervisors that have resigned, quit, terminated, are still being carried on the roster as AWOL. Absent without leave. How are they absent without leave if they've already retired, already resigned, or already were terminated? You still see that today. But then you'll say that the officers or supervisors aren't coming to work. They're not coming to work because they don't work here no more. They resigned, they quit. But you're making the numbers seem as though they're still in our matrix because you don't want to take them off. Commissioner Carney talked about staffing the housing areas and running programs and having the operation of the facility. That's the top priority. I agree with you 100%. But what about the rovers that should be there to respond? When you have the housing areas watching the inmates, when you have the officer that's assigned to the programs watching the inmates, when a response happens, who's there to respond? Nobody, because you're not staffing the rovers. Prime example, this past weekend, when they were denied officers and supervisors to come in at RCF this past weekend, you had so many calls for assistance is needed, rovers is needed, where the center control sergeant had to leave center, which is a critical post, to adjust and see what was going on. God forbid something happened on that housing area and that sergeant was injured. Who's now running the facility? Because that sergeant is out of center control and there's no one in there running it. Prime example, that's how things like the escape can happen. When you close these posts and you subject some of these people to say, do this, do that. There's times where you can see the post that's open and that officer is not even assigned to it because they redirect them to somewhere else and say, we're going to keep this officer on this post to make it look good on paper, but we're going to reassign him to a housing area. So if anyone questions it, he's actually at that post. I've seen that done plenty of times. I talked about the officers being denied, supervisors being denied to come in because of staff shortage. Like I said, I understand that the facility needs to operate, but we need to do it safely and then controllably. We need to CTC, control the controllables. And that's what we're not doing in the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. And as a frontline supervisor, I see that time in and time out. It's just get it done, get it done. The administration wants it done. We talked about the K2 smell. About a month ago, one of the officers had to go out fire rescue because of the K2 smell because she was on the block for 16 hours. She went out, she got admitted to She got admitted in the hospital because of an elevated heart rate. She returned back to work she was out for about a week. You know what they carried her as? Absent without leave and sick no time. And you know what they did? They wrote her up for that. They wrote her up. Just yesterday, I had to have a hearing for her to defend that officer. How do you carry someone that goes out fire rescue, absent without leave and sick no time, and they got hurt on the job because of the K2 smile, and they kept reporting it and logged it? But you gave her a write-up for that. That's why people have the low morale in that facility. Ms. Vaughn, you talked about retaliation and punishment. That's not true, because I've dealt with that. I've personally dealt with that, and this administration knows it. Prime example, I've taken the lieutenant's test twice. Was denied the first time. The second time, I didn't even get an interview for it. They promoted people, and then after the promotion, they said, "We do apologize. We overlooked you. You will be eligible for the next batch for an interview." Come on, be for real. I don't even, it's like, come on. Do I really want it? Because now I know the facts and the layers that it plays. Officers working more than 17 hours to 20 hours are told to use a sick day or vacation day or report to work. How do you tell me to report to work after I've just done 20 hours or use a sick day or vacation day? No, why can't you give me E-time? Oh, we can't give you E-time. No, you should. I've just done 20 hours. My body is not well rested for another for 4 more hours to come back to do this all over again just to possibly get stuck. The 12 hours, yes, it's nice. It's good. It creates work-life balance when these officers aren't getting drafted or mandated. And we talked about the officers working the 12 hours. Yeah, they can do an additional 4, but who's to say they're doing an additional 4? Because guess what? If I'm assigned to A unit for the first 12 hours from 7A to 7P, now officer from 7P to 7A on A unit calls out, I'm stuck over there, right? So who's coming to relieve me for after the next 4 hours? Nobody. So now I'm at 20 hours, and guess what? Now we're leaving up the area unmanned, and I can't get a day. Now I'm expected to leave work at 3 a.m. to report back to work at 7 a.m. to take over that same post where that officer can call out again. But they know this is going on, but they choose to ignore it. And then when you speak upon it, they get mad. Oh, you're disgruntled. You're wrong. Just go with the program. No, we can't go with the program, because guess what? You do your 8 to 5, you do your 8 to 4, and you leave. Some of these people that's being promoted now have never stepped in a facility for almost 10 years. And they're making lieutenants, they're making captains because they're cool with this administration. And they're sitting up there making decisions that they haven't been in the jail for the last 15 years about. You talk about safety and security. How can someone actually make a decision about safety and security and haven't been in the jail for almost 15 years? You can't, because you don't know what's going on in the jail. All you know is what you see on paper, and that doesn't really speak to it. It really doesn't. And I just really thank you guys. And like I said, these are issues that I brought up in 2021. In 2021, where the inmates was popping out of their facilities, popping out their cells, and they said, don't call it pop out, say they breached the lock mechanism. I wrote all these things down on grievances that went unanswered by this administration. I have the copies it was stamped and received on these dates by this administration in grievance format, and no one never answered it or got back to me at all. I was told, you're making waves with people that can control your faith and control your future. But as a supervisor delegate, as a supervisor shop steward, I have to speak, because I represent supervisors and I represent officers. And some of these officers and supervisors don't want to speak up because they are afraid of being retaliated. And I'm going to be honest with you, at one point, I was afraid too. But guess what? I'm already being retaliated against them. So guess what? I might as well speak up on it now, because I'm letting the chips fall where they fall. Because guess what? When I come to work, I'm coming to work to do my job to the best of my ability. And when the punches roll, they roll, and I fight it from there. And that's it. Do I like my job? Absolutely. I love my job. That's why I continue to come to work every day. But the people that's leading us, they don't have the passion. They don't have the desire. It's a friends with family plan with this department. If you're not friends with this administration, you don't get anything. But guess what? My friends are the officers that I supervise. My friends are the ones that showed up to the hospital. My friends, if I say, yo, I need you to do this, I need you to do that for me, they get it done. This administration, all they want is numbers and results to show the council and show the mayor's office that they're making progress. They're really not making progress. They're fudging the numbers to make it look like they're making progress, and that's a problem. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony, but more importantly, thank you for your service. And I am thankful that you are recovering from your attack and want to make sure that you go to work at the job you love, feeling safer. And we're going to fight towards that. If you would, can you send us a copy of those emails? And I will share it with the members of the committee, or a synopsis. You don't have to send all 100, different pages, but if you could break it down so that we can, in those 90 days, look at where we are with some of those issues. If you could provide that, that would be helpful.
I surely will. I'll send it to your email. I'll scan it and send it to your email and send it to you, Ms. Vaughn.
I thank you. Mr. Chairman, were you done?
Yeah, I'm recognizing you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Bishop, thank you for coming forward and having the courage to inform us. I believe the commissioner needs to answer some of this. Although this hearing wasn't technically about the conditions, it was more so concerning the escape. But to hear some of the horrors that you have to deal with on a daily basis just boggles my mind. And I believe a lot of it is true. And I've heard the expression where inmates have been able to pop out of their cells, but I've also been told that that situation has been corrected. And so a lot of the things that you stated in your testimony, Commissioner, are you willing to reply to a lot of those things? And again, Mr. Chairman, we have to make sure that people like Mr. Bishop that do come forward and express their opinion. You notice I did not say it was fact, and I'm not taking anything from you, Mr. Bishop, because it can possibly be the truth. But we need to hear feedback, and this administration, as well as any administration going forward, needs to address these type of issues, because this is one of the reasons why we can't maintain staff if they're dealing with these type of conditions. With that, I'll let the Blanche Carney answer some of the issues that Mr. Bishop brought to our forefront.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Carney.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. Any staff that experiences a medical emergency on duty, we have records such as our COPA 2 forms where those individuals are transported either by ambulance or prison transportation to a hospital. So that's document of the procedures we have in place. Additionally, I spoke earlier, anyone can go to the Office of Professional Compliance and file, and that initiates the investigation. At that point, the Office of Professional Compliance does the investigation and renders a decision to say whether it's founded or unfounded. And if staff don't feel comfortable for whatever reason going to the Office of Professional Compliance, they can go to the other departments or agencies that I testified to previously. We understand how contraband gets in, and we were very intentional to introduce mail scanning technology. And that technology allows any U.S. mail that comes through to an incarcerated person to be scanned for any anomalies. We have been very, very successful in intercepting a majority of the mail that comes in, but certainly there are new ways and new ways individuals will try to seek to get it in. But we stood up that scanning process to divert any contraband from coming in that way. So it has been successful. We also are standing up the body scanners, which we know will detect soft contraband, not metal detectors, It'll pick that up too, but the soft contraband that can be concealed on someone's person entering in the secure perimeter. That was another effort and step that we took. We don't want anyone to work in a condition where there is intentional introduction of contraband and that the population utilizes it. So if someone takes ill, they do have that notification to the supervisor, and then the supervisor, we have a process to open what we call air exchange. At that point, they can go out. Any investigations, and I'm not going to go case by case to what Mr. Bishop testified to, because we have supporting documentation as well. We can certainly prepare and provide information to the extent that we can, because that is his involved of his history with the prisons. But also the key here is that, and we heard a lot of the testimony, we have to manage the workforce that we have. Full transparency, we've acknowledged we're short of staff. Yes, you may want to think you can bring people in earlier, but there's a 12-hour shift waiting for them as well. There's a balance that has to be met. The facilities manage it. We have 3 wardens in place that work to make sure that the rosters are updated. Part of our staffing analysis, we are replacing our antiquated method of how we manage our rosters, and that's being stood up as well. Those are past practices, which it's not modern day corrections. That is already well underway with revising to make sure if Councilmember Jones, you're on post A, if we remove you, post A is closed, and now it shows where you are. So that's a process that's been in play for about the last 6 months, where we're doing the overhaul for that. But certainly we encourage staff to report what it is they have. This is not a buddy system. I have no allegiance to anyone. We follow civil service regulations, and it's based on that's how you're getting into promotion. And we shouldn't prohibit people. If someone has been in an outside unit and there's a position, they take promotion, we're placing people where we need them at this point. But the goal here is that you have to fill the vacancies. We remain committed to that. So if Mr. Bishop submits his information, we'll provide a response. And the Office of Professional Compliance, every time you go in, it creates and generates an investigation. So we'll be able to respond accordingly. But the goal here is we want people to work, but everyone can't do everything and we can't do everything. And so when we talk about making sure bringing people earlier in and then taking away on the back end doesn't help us. So those are day-to-day operational decisions that have to be made as well.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being willing to address those issues that we can. We will ask that we receive those specific concerns. We will forward them to you, and somewhere around 90 days, maybe we'll be able to respond on the record. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions from members of the committee?
Mr.
Seeing
Chairman,
none.
it looks like Mr. Bishop raised his hand to try to say something. I know he can't.
No, well, what I'd rather do is, rather than go back and forth,
Yes.
give us a complete history of those emails, those
Yes.
concerns. We will
Yes.
forward them to the commissioner so that we can comprehensively go through that. It'll be a matter of public record for this committee.
Okay, great.
All right?
Yes.
Because you know how that goes. We'll go back and
Yes,
forth.
we'll be here all day.
Yeah. So that being said, are there any others to testify?
Mr.
Seeing
Chairman, there are
none-
no
Go ahead. Go ahead,
no
Mr.
other
Brown.
members for public comment today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so very much. This concludes the public hearing of the Committee on Public Safety dealing with resolution number 230467. This committee will stand at recess to the call of the chair approximately in the next 90 days. Thank you all for your testimony. Thank you for your commitment to the safety of the city of Philadelphia, in particular, the corrections officers, inmates, and staff.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.